and adjudicate you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
For not being the daughter they wished I would be.
God! God!
Lionel Tate, born on January 30th, 1987. Tate was only 13 when he was convicted of first-degree murder for killing Tiffany Unick, a 6-year-old he was left alone with. Tate's mother was babysitting Unick when she went upstairs for a while and left the kids playing. Less than 50 minutes later, Tate, who was 12 then, came upstairs and reported that Unick was no longer breathing. He confirmed that they were wrestling before she became unresponsive. An examination of Unick's corpse revealed that she had a fractured skull, swollen brain, and fractured rib. She also had bruises on her feet, neck, and leg. In fact, Tate stomped on her so forcefully that her liver was lacerated. The prosecution argued that the injuries she sustained were similar to those she would have gotten if she had fallen from a 3-story building. Tate was the youngest American citizen sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. His sentence was later overturned, and he was sentenced to 1-year house arrest and 10 years probation. That's what a little play can cause. Playful but dangerous, although not as dangerous as our number 2. Alyssa Bustamante.
Yeah, cut throat. She died. Just shattered.
Alyssa Bustamante was born on January 28, 1994, and lived with her grandparents, who took legal custody of her and her siblings since her father was in jail and the mother had addiction problems. Bustamante struggled with suicidal tendencies and fantasized about cutting someone. On October 21, 2009, when she was 15, Bustamante planned and murdered the 9-year-old daughter of a neighbor, lured Elizabeth Olton into the woods, stabbed the girl 8 times, and strangled her. She then buried the child in a grave she had dug days ago, recorded her crime in her journal, and went to their church dance. Following investigations and a tip-off, police were able to capture her and recover Olton's corpse. Bustamante took a plea deal and was charged with second-degree murder and armed criminal action. She was sentenced to life imprisonment with a possibility of conditional release, plus a 30-year sentence that will run consecutively. That will be a long, long time to spend in prison. Sadly, she will be going alone, unlike our number 3.
On the night of the 15th, I was contacted by Brendan Heim and Tyrell Brennan to be given a ride to East Lansing in order to rob and or beat up Mr. Justin Bonga.
Samantha Grigg. 18-year-old Samantha Grigg was supposed to be working on getting that university admission, being she is half a credit shy of graduating high school. Instead, the Saline High School senior would spend years behind bars. Grigg was paid $100 for gas to drive 16-year-old Brendan Heim and 17-year-old Tyrell Bredernitz to rob Michigan State University student Dustin Frolka. The teenagers took Frolka to different ATMs to withdraw money for them.
On the night of the 15th, I was contacted by Brendan Heim and Tyrell Brennan to be given a ride to East Lansing in order to rob and or beat up Mr. Justin Bonga.
They then took him to the car and beat him with brass knuckles while Grigg drove. Frolka couldn't take the beating anymore and jumped out of the car that was going at a speed of 45 to 60 miles an hour and landed on Interstate 69. He sustained a fractured skull and didn't survive his injuries. During her arraignment, Grigg was very remorseful, regretted her actions, and apologized to the victim's family.
I would like to extend my deepest remorse to the family of the victim. He was a fellow musician. It really breaks my heart.
Things get more dangerous from here. Keandria Cook. Cook was arrested after she used a dating app to lure Perry Nita to a remote location in South Daytona, where her boyfriend, Kendrick Bass, and others robbed Nita and stole his car. Nita invited Emmanuel Purcell, his 17-year-old friend, to go with him to meet Cook. Bass shot Purcell during the process of carjacking. Fortunately, Purcell survived the shooting. Bass and Cook then went on to steal another car. Cook was initially sentenced to 20 years in prison after she entered a no-contest plea to principal carjacking with a deadly weapon and principal to aggravated battery with a deadly weapon.
I'm going to go ahead and adjudicate you guilty of all 3 charges, sentence you to 20 years in state prison.
Following her cooperation with the state to get Bass behind bars, her sentence was reviewed, and she was sentenced to 11 years in jail, plus 20 years probation. Fair enough. Her cooperation eased her sentence, but what if you're seen as dangerous, but not actually so? Conrad Schaefer. At 15, Conrad Schaefer killed 2 people. Schaefer and a group of friends, 17-year-old Victoria Rios, Juan Muriel, and David Damas, thought it would be cool to terrorize Osceola County in 2013. Their 2 weeks of terror resulted in the death of 17-year-old David Guerrero, who was shot on his way to work. A few days after the death of David, Schaefer and his friends broke into the house of 22-year-old Eric Rupnerine, slit his throat, and shot him dead. Their actions also led to damage to several properties. During his trial, he apologized, but the victims' families didn't accept the apology. Schaefer was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to consecutive life sentences. Seems like consecutive life sentences are the price you pay for being a dangerous child. But 3 consecutive life sentences? What could be the offense? T.J. Lane. Lane, an ex-student of Chardon High School, shot at 6 students with a .22 caliber handgun on February 27, 2012. Unfortunately, 3 of the students didn't survive the shooting. Lane had a troubled childhood, and his shooting at students was intended to eliminate a romantic rival. He was tried as an adult and showed no remorse during his trial. He wore a shirt with the word killer written across it, constantly abused the victims' families, and gave them the middle finger. The 17-year-old pleaded guilty and was given 3 consecutive life sentences, 1 for each student he killed. A befitting sentence indeed. Things get exciting in number 5. Cameron Herron and John Barrineau. Herron was born September 9, 1999. He was a car enthusiast and often indulged in illegal street racing. On May 23, 2018, during one such street racing on Bayshore Boulevard, he hit and killed Jessica Reisinger, a mother, and her 2-year-old child, Lilia, who were lawfully crossing the street. When the accident happened, he was racing with Barrineau, who was 17. Police report that the car's speed was upwards of 100 miles per hour before the crash. Herron was charged with 2 counts of vehicular homicide and 3 counts of illegal racing on the highway. He pleaded guilty to the charges in 2020 and was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Barrineau pleaded guilty to a charge of illegal street racing and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. Is that enough sentencing? But things get more interesting from here. Roxana Sikorsky. Born on March 21, 1999, Sikorsky was only 15 when she, at the behest of her boyfriend, slashed her younger brother's throat in a plan that was supposed to see her kill the whole family. In mid-2014, Sikorsky met Michael Rivera, who was in his 20s, and the two started dating. Not long after, Sikorsky's parents learned of this relationship and forbade it. They even took legal action against Rivera, but they continued to meet secretly. Soon after, Rivera convinced Sikorsky to kill her family so they could be free. In October 2014, she repeatedly slashed her brother's throat and moved to the sister's room when the parents woke. She fled with Rivera. Luckily, the little brother survived, and Rivera and Sikorsky were caught. She was tried as an adult, charged with conspiracy to commit murder and assault with intent to murder, and sent to a maximum of 20 years in jail.
God! God!
Damon Kemp. When 19-year-old Kemp was rolled into the courtroom, he couldn't stop yelling and screaming, "God!" The teenager was in court for the murder of his 2 friends, Trey Ingram and Jordan Patton. For this, he was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. Trey and his cousin Patton have occasionally accommodated Kemp in their apartment. Neighbors described Kemp as their acquaintance. Initially, police couldn't find a motive for the murders, but investigations revealed that the tragedy began as an armed robbery. One of the cousins had posted a wad of bills on the internet, and Kemp felt he could help himself to some of that. He also assaulted another occupant in the same building and is facing assault, break-in, and burglary charges. He was first arrested for these charges before detectives connected him to the double murder. How dangerous can these kids get? The next one will show you. Fernando Salgado. Salgado was an A.B. Miller High School student who was arraigned on 2 felony counts of attempted sexual penetration with a foreign object and false imprisonment. The 18-year-old pleaded not guilty to the charges, but was remanded with bail set at $300,000. The judge's order that he remain in prison until his bail was posted didn't sit well with Salgado, who started yelling that he wanted to go home and that they should get him out. In collaboration with 3 of his classmates and the alleged approval of the class teacher, Emmanuel de la Rosa, Salgado tried to maintain decorum in the class by allegedly assaulting students, including a 14-year-old classmate. Initially, he accepted a plea deal that could see him serve up to 4 years, but he was later placed on probation for 3 years.